Good evening, Hofstra fans, and welcome to the first episode of Sports Beat for the spring semester. It's 2020, a new year, a new set, and a brand new host. We've got a great show for you all. I'm Ryan Yee, hosting for the very first time, and tonight I'll be joined by Max Sacco, Lou Accumanno, and Tommy Aquilina. We'll be talking about wrestling and our men's and women's basketball team, and as always, we have Facetimes. So don't go anywhere, because Sports Beat starts right now. Before we get into our discussions, we've got Tommy Aquilina in studio for the week in review.
Hofstra's men's basketball team vaulted into first place in the CAA this past week with a 75-71 win over Northeastern on Saturday, February 8th. Jalen Ray and DeJure Bowie both dropped 22 points for the Pride, who won their fourth game in a row. With a 9-3 conference record, Hofstra stands a half game ahead of the College of Charleston and 1 game ahead of Delaware. The women's basketball team did not have as good of a week as the men's team did. Hofstra fell to first place Drexel Friday, February 7th by a score of 45-32. Despite a better offensive performance on Sunday, the Pride lost to Delaware 77-67. That loss dropped Hofstra's record to 3-19 and 0-11 in conference. This past week also saw 2 of Hofstra's 4 spring teams begin their seasons. For the men's lacrosse team, that start came Saturday, February 8th at home against Wagner. The Pride opened their 2020 season with a 21-11 victory. 11 players scored, including freshman Justin Sykes, who recorded 4 goals and 2 assists in his collegiate debut. Ryan Tierney and Dylan McIntosh added 3 goals each, as Hofstra scored its most goals in one game since April 12, 2006. Tierney led the team with 55 points last season. Hofstra outshot Wagner 47-30 and won 27 of the 36 faceoffs. The women's lacrosse team also held their 2020 season opener at home on Saturday, losing to the University of Southern California. Hofstra pushed the 16th-ranked team in the country to the brink, however, bringing a 4-2 lead into halftime before blowing an 8-6 lead and falling 9-8. Alexa Matera scored 4 goals, while Alyssa Perella added 2 of her own. Sophomore goalie Jess Smith notched a career-high 14 saves in a losing effort. I'm Tommy Aquilina, and this has been your Week in Review.
Thanks, Tommy. To kick things off, I'm joined by Max Sacco and Lou Accumanno. Guys, got to talk about one of the hottest teams on campus, and that is Hofstra Wrestling. Man, this team has won 5 in a row, their longest streak since the 2011-2012 season. Has this little run here surprised you guys, and can they win out the rest of the way?
Ryan, it has surprised me. The fact that we only have 3 more matches left on the season, and 2 of them being Ivy League schools, can I see them going the rest of the way? I can't, and here's why. We don't do well against Ivy League schools. We play Harvard first. It's going to be us against Harvard, and we are known as the Harvard of Hempstead. So, in my opinion, we will probably lose that match, and then right after that, we play Brown. I can see us pulling out of that one, and then right after that, we have an easier game in Sacred Heart, and we can just spank them all day long if we wanted to. Coach Papadopoulos knows what to do with them. So, I can't see us going all the way, but it's possible.
Lou, I'm going to have to disagree with you here. The team has the stats to back them up. This team has not had a match like this since they sent 4 players to nationals back in the early 2010s. You look at this team, the stats there to back them up. You have 5 concrete wrestlers who have a solid bid to go to Minnesota for the NCAA championships. You have Dylan Reiter, Sage Heller, Reese Heller, Zachary Knight Ward, and Trey Rogers on an outside bid for that 5th spot. This team is hitting their stride at the right time. They're first place in the EIWA after everyone picked them to finish last. And you have a whole team that's getting hot at the right moment. They will easily win out the season and smoke a Harvard team that is 1-6, a Brown team that's 1-7, and a Sacred Heart team that's 2-4.
But Max, the pressure's on right now for this team. They haven't faced this pressure in years. Like Ryan said, this hasn't happened since 2011, 2012. It's 2020 now. This is a lot at stake, especially for the Heller brothers. The pressure's on.
Listen, pressure's there, but this team's handled pressure. They went into a pressure cooker environment in George Mason University, and that place is known to be the kryptonite for the Hofstra Pride. That is known to ruin the Pride, ruin any streaks they have, slow down their wrestlers. You know, the season derails at George Mason University.
Absolutely.
But they traveled to Arlington, Virginia, and came out with a 40-5 win. 40-5 means they only dropped one match in 10 weight classes. They won 9 out of 10 weight classes, and you want to tell me this team can handle that environment and come away with a win and not finish the season undefeated? You are wrong beyond belief.
Well,
they
Max,
have stepped up to every challenge they've faced.
Max, you mentioned nationals, and Lou, you alluded to it. This does have some reflections here of that early 2010s team where they went on that same streak, had a bunch of athletes go to nationals. Will they send athletes this year to nationals? And a second follow-up question here, is it a disappointing season if they do not?
I wouldn't say disappointing. I would say train wreck of a season if not one wrestler can make nationals, because I told you earlier there's 5 guys who can make nationals. I put Ricky Stam on an outside bid for that 6th and final spot. You can obviously send 11 wrestlers to nationals, up to 11. You can send your full lineup, but that never happens unless you're someone like a Penn State where you are the #1 team in the country and you're known for having that sort of depth with your wrestlers. But for this team, there's 5 guys they can send in, and I've already said them. Ricky Stam on an outside 6.
There's a lot of weapons on this team that Coach Papadopoulos can use. I wouldn't be surprised with whoever you said for those 5 would be able to make the nationals.
Right, and how much is riding here for those athletes specifically? How much is it them being driven to make that national tournament? Because, I mean, they've won 5 matches in a row. It's got to be big, and they got to be vying for that spot.
They're going to be vying, and a lot of these guys, Reese Heller, he's a freshman. Dylan Ryder's a sophomore. For those guys, if they can get that win, that's confidence going forward for 2-3 more years of wrestling for them.
No, absolutely. And the fact that we haven't seen this in program history in a long time, this would just do absolute wonders. And it will bring a lot more names for the coming years, I assume, for this sport.
Well, right now it seems like this team is absolutely unbeatable, but we got to move on to our women's basketball team, who has started out a little bit slow here in conference play. I mean, they haven't won a game yet in the CAA play so far, but what has surprised you most with this women's basketball team?
Ryan, this team has heart, and they have short memory loss. The fact that they get spanked almost every game, it's tough to watch, but also the fact that they're learning is fun, and they want to play under Danielle Santos-Atkinson, who isn't, a new coach to Hofstra. She's coached here before, but now she's taking more of a dominant role. Right. And it's interesting, the fact where you see flashes of brilliance with the new players that they have, and the fact that they lost someone last season in Boogie Brzezowski. It's hard, and you want to learn how to bounce back from that, and it starts here. It's a process. You have to trust it, absolutely, and it's just going to be a fun time seeing how this team can grow together.
Ryan, I'm speechless looking at this team. I had a lot of faith in this team going forward. We all knew it would be a tough year. You're entering with the new coach. We all knew it was going to be a step back, but the step back they've had is catching me off guard. We're still waiting for conference win #1. We've seen sparks and flashes here and there. Charleston, they lost by 3. Towson, yes, they lost by 13. But 71 points against a team that's the defending CAA champion speaks for itself. And at the same time, we've seen games like Drexel where they lose by 13 with a final score of 45-32, and you're wondering what happened here when Marianne Collins, your leading scorer, when usually Anna Hernandez-Heel or Sorella Neza is going to be that leading scorer. And it's regression that's surprising me, that you had players that were so big last season, all of a sudden this season kind of sputtering out of the gate.
But Max, that's what makes the sport so great. The runs, the fact that you have to see what clicks and what works, and the gears start to shift and start to turn.
What gears are turning then? I'm going to throw you that question.
You have to trust
what gears are turning.
You said it, Marianne Collins, and the fact that Sorella Neza is here, and even though there's no leadership right now in that locker room, the fact that you have to understand this does take time. Rome wasn't built in a day, Max. Basketball is a game of runs. They will find what works in time, and that's what's so beautiful about the sport.
I think they found things that have worked this season. I think they found that Marianne Collins, a good center to kind of build around in that department. They found Sorella Neza as the future leader of this team going forward for the next couple years. But at the same time, I think it's time that we start to experiment with this lineup. To the point of where I say, let's see what happens. Ana Hernandez-Heel moves into a 6th woman position. Let's put someone in her spot. Let's see what happens if you can bring a 3-point shooter like her off the bench. You're down by 4. let's bring her on. She hits 2 quick threes in a row, you're up all of a sudden. You're up by 2 then. So maybe it's time to start doing not just little experiments like, let's see what Sorrell does at the shooting guard position and the point guard, but as who's going to start instead of just who's going to be on the bench.
And I mean, like you guys mentioned, we knew coming into this season that it was a rebuilding year and it wasn't necessarily going to be a season where they were going to overtake the CA. I think we all knew that coming into this year. But is the biggest problem with this team the fact that they don't really have that go-to scorer right now? I mean, last year they were able to go to Boogie Brzezowski, and she was kind of strangleholding this team. Do you think that they need that player to kind of step up, and that's what's missing from this squad?
It's different now because the fact that we're playing college ball, the fact that you had an all-star in Boogie Brzezowski, a point guard who shot the lights out of the gym every time she was consistent, and you take that away, and now you have to play team basketball, and that's a lot harder. I do agree with you, but a lot of other schools don't have that. Our school right now, we don't have Justin Wright Foreman, and we have to play team basketball, and we have 4 different players scoring in double figures. It's hard, it's a challenge, but Danielle Santos Atkinson has to make those coaching adjustments, and that's what ultimately this team needs to do. Like Max said, test run, trial and error.
Lou, you say that there's other schools who don't have a leader, who it's team. It's just a flat team. I guess the closest NBA comparison, if you want to go, there's like that 2004, 2005 Piston. There's no clear leader. It's just a team. Then why is a team like Towson, where there's no clear leader, at the top of the conference? But it's just a team basketball.
Max, that's a different argument, though, because I think Towson has those 2-3 players that go absolutely off, and they have the ability to score from perimeter range that is absolutely ridiculous. I think we all know that this is a rebuilding year. We all know that this team is developing, but I think in time, we're going to start to see the things pay off what Danielle Santos Atkinson is trying to implement into this women's team. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to drive into the men's basketball team.
Cash. Emily. Thought that'd work. He's on fire.
I'm just not sure they're the right fit. Maybe it's an audio issue. Hey, could you guys speak a little bit louder? You know what? Sometimes less is more.
Welcome back. I'm still joined by our amazing panelists, Max and Lou. It's time to now shift over to the men's basketball team, a team that's been absolutely on a tear right now. They've won 4 in a row. They're sitting atop of the conference right now with a 9-3 conference play record. Man, is this the team? Is this everything seems to be rolling for this Hofstra Pride team right now?
This is definitely the team to watch on campus. The fact that you lost your best player in Justin Wright Foreman. He's gone. He decided to go to the NBA draft, get drafted by the Utah Jazz, and he's doing bigger and better things in the G League. The fact that this team was projected to go number 1 was spot on, and they have just been cruising it and just killing it every game in and out. And we saw a team that struggled at one point, first game of the season against San Jose State, and we didn't know what they were going to be shaping up to be throughout the season, and they have just been playing absolute great basketball, team basketball. I've never seen this team more together than I have ever seen them in my 4 years here at Hofstra.
I have to agree with Lou here. Just the change in this team from last year to this year. I mean, yeah, in that San Jose State game, I call it the "Where's Justin" formula. You know, they're playing that game going, "Where's Justin? Ain't to pass to Justin. Where's Justin in the corner? Where's Justin beyond the arc?" But all of a sudden now they've developed. It's no longer this is Justin's old team and he had help from DeJour and Eli. Now this is DeJour and Eli's team with help from the bench. Now it's not just Justin, 1, 2 other players. They have a team aspect around them. And with that team aspect, they've been succeeding. they're playing games last year where they could have lost and now getting wins out of it. And I think the biggest example of that is Northeastern. When Northeastern pushes us, that last game, the home game against Northeastern, where Northeastern pushed us and we came right back and said, no, this is our court. We're winning here. And it's not just, oh, you shut down Justin, so now the rest of us are going to have to scramble. No, you shut down DeJour, we still have Eli, we still have Jalen, we still have Tariq. This is a team effort now, and this is a team that is bound to do great things.
Now, a part of that success this season has been on the road. I mean, at one point, this team was leading the country in most road wins with 9. Now they sit at second place with that. I mean, there was that trip earlier in the season where they traveled over 6,000 miles in the span of about 2 weeks. They went down to California, they went down to Florida, then they went upstate to St. Bonaventure. Like I said, traveling over 6,000 miles. How much has that road trip played into their success on the road this season?
You traveled from the East Coast to the West Coast, back to the East Coast, just to come back home. You most arguably won the greatest matchup in program history, beating UCLA at UCLA. We smoked them. And the fact that we just kept rolling with it, and we didn't know what our identity was until we beat them, is fantastic. And that's what set the tone throughout the rest of the season. I'm so happy the fact that we had those away games first, because those are the hard ones. The fact that you had to travel back and forth, that you had to adjust to the time. You have to adjust to the away team, and you have to play at their home turf. That's hard to do, and I am just truly amazed of how everything's been going for this team as of late.
I think about the team together. I think that was the defining road trip that connected this team, because after that road trip, you no longer saw the, where's Justin? I need to pass to Justin. Where's Justin? Oh, my God. That went away after that road trip. They figured out this is our team, this is who we're going to play, this is how we're going to play. And it all came together at UCLA, and since then this team has been connected with each other, and they've been winning games since then, and that's why they're at the top of the conference, because that road trip brought them together not only as a team, but as a family.
Now the top spot in the conference is also up for grabs coming up tomorrow in that big matchup against the Charleston Cougars. This is definitely the biggest game of the season so far. What do you guys expect from this game and this matchup here in Hempstead against the Cougars?
This is going to be a dogfight, Ryan. The fact that we're first place, they're second place. Grant Riller is their top scorer. He averages 22 points per game. If you stop him, you will have a great chance of winning. We know that. But you also have to defend the court. Will the 2-3 zone work in this game? I don't know. In my opinion, man always works better. For 2-3 zone, you're saving your stamina. Our best contribution to this team is our offense. We will score buckets, but can our defense hold up against this team?
Well, Ryan, I was lucky enough to be at that game when they faced Charleston. You were there as well. And what I saw in that game was two things. They shut down Grant Riller. That was great. In his place, his other 4 starting teammates stepped up, and no one expected that. You know, up until that point in the season, the strategy was beat Grant Riller, beat Charleston. It worked a couple times in their non-conference slate. You know, Grant Riller would only finished with 10 points, then all of a sudden the other team would win by 40. But then all of a sudden we stopped Grant Riller, and then it seems like their bench came alive in that game. So I think this time we can't underestimate, you know, the bench production or the other starting 4 production as well, besides just Grant Riller.
Right, and I think also something that was evident in that game as well is kind of the runs that happen with this Hofstra Pride team. And I think we've talked very positively about this team, but I think a criticism of this Hofstra Pride men's basketball team as well is that they seem at points in the game to be unbeatable, absolutely unbeatable, but then there are also times where they do slow down. How much will that affect them tomorrow?
It's going to affect them. The fact that sometimes we don't play up to that status quo is scary. We should be blowing out teams by at least 15 to 20 points, in my opinion. We play team basketball greatly. It's awesome. I've never seen this before in my opinion, program history. The fact that we shifted from from ISO basketball to team basketball, it's a different aspect. Just enjoy it.
I think we need to see a complete 40 minutes. I think in the last game with Charleston, there were spurts, like you said, Ryan, 2-minute scoreless run here, 3-minute scoreless run there. And slowly that adds up to the point now where instead of being up by 15, you're up by 2, and you're trying to defend that lead with 10 seconds left, and Grant Riller has the ball.
Yep.
So we can't have these little spurts of scorelessness throughout the game that kill you in the end. We have to play a full 40 where we're just getting baskets constantly, maybe a 30-second drought once in a while, but you're not letting it get to the 2-3-minute mark.
Well, that matchup tomorrow is definitely going to be one you won't want to miss against the Charleston Cougars here at home at the MAC. Once again, though, we're going to have to send it to Tommy Aquilina in studio for the week ahead.
Hofstra's men's basketball team has a big week ahead of them. Tomorrow, Thursday, February 13th, the Pride will play the College of Charleston at 7 o'clock in a battle of the top two teams in the CAA. The Pride, who will host the game, are currently in first place in the conference at 9-3. The Cougars, meanwhile, fell to 9-4 Saturday after losing to Elon. Then on Saturday the 15th, Hofstra will welcome the rival UNCW Seahawks for a 4 o'clock game. Hofstra's women's basketball team also has two games this upcoming week. They'll look to snap their 13-game losing streak at 7 o'clock on Friday, February 14th at Elon. The Pride will then travel from North Carolina to Virginia for a matchup with William & Mary at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Hofstra lost to William & Mary by 13 on January 17th and to Elon by 13 on January 19th. The men's lacrosse team will play their second game of the season Saturday, the 15th of February. The Michigan Wolverines will come to James M. Schwartz Stadium for an 11 a.m. bout with the Pride. Hofstra will end up playing one home game in each of the first 3 weeks of the season before ramping up their schedule towards the end of February. The upcoming 7 days will feature two games for the women's lacrosse team, giving them an opportunity to go from under 500 to above 500. First, they'll follow the men's team Saturday when they host Bucknell at 2 o'clock. The Pride will then head to Staten Island for their game against Wagner, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Hofstra's softball team will open their 2020 season a long way from Long Island in Stanford, California. The Pride will play 2 doubleheaders this weekend before wrapping up the Stanford Invitational with a Sunday morning game before returning to the East Coast. Hofstra's season opener will come Friday, February 14th against Drake University at 2:30 Pacific Time. They will then turn right around and play host Stanford at 5 o'clock. Saturday, Hofstra is slated to play Drake at 10 a.m. and Stanford at 12:30 p.m. Hofstra's only scheduled game for Sunday will be against Drake at 9 a.m. All 5 games will be played at the Boyd and Jill Smith Family Stadium. As for the baseball team, their opening weekend will see them play one series. It will be against the Purdue University Boilermakers in Sanford, Florida, a neutral site. Friday's season opener will take place at 3 o'clock. Saturday will see Hofstra and Purdue play a doubleheader with the first game beginning at 1 o'clock. The teams will then wrap up their 4-game series Sunday at noon. The Pride will want to get off to a good start this season after losing 24 of their first 30 games last year. I'm Tommy Aquilina, and this has been your Week Ahead. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Tommy. Before we jump into Facetimes, we're going to take another short break. Don't go anywhere.
Why this show's topics sound a little different than usual?
I mean, what even is lion talk? Is that a sport?
And why is there a 30-minute break for fur maintenance? Actually, we could even use a 45-minute break for fur maintenance.
And to kick off our first FaceTime of 2020, we have Lou Accumanno with a tribute to the legendary Kobe Bryant.
On January 26, the NBA lost one of its most valuable players, Kobe Bryant. The Black Mamba had a mentality like no other who inspired everyone not only in the sport of basketball, but around the world. Even when his career as a player was over, his life outside of the league had just begun. With 5 NBA championships in a 20-season span, Kobe set out and won an Academy Award for Best Short Film called Dear Basketball. There was nothing that this man couldn't do. As a player, businessman, and father. For years on the court, we saw a stone-cold basketball player. But off the court, we saw a caring and wise human being who set out to make everyone else happy. One of his most famous quotes, "Once you know what failure feels like, determination chases that success." Kobe beat everyone by outworking them in the gym and mentally. There was so much more that this man had to accomplish. For instance, this summer is the new induction of the Hall of Fame class that he was eligible to be in. We will never get a chance to hear that speech. Thank you for inspiring me and several others to be the best we can be every day. Life is too short. Let's live it to the fullest and outwork success, so one day we can all be one of the greats.
The Olympics, the pinnacles of what athletes try to achieve and succeed in their careers. From track and field to wrestling, the Olympics has them all. And this summer, they come back for Tokyo 2020. But this year, there's a change as 6 new sports come to the scene. In an effort to, quote, modernize some events, the the Olympics is bringing karate, sport climbing, which is rock climbing, surfing, skateboarding, baseball, and softball. The last two sports make their return to the Olympics after a hiatus, and the Americans are favorites to win in both events as well. As for skateboarding and surfing, they now make the jump from being sports only one would see in the X Games to sports that people around the world can watch and root for. Finally, with sport climbing and karate, the International Olympic Committee felt that with the new decade should come new sports. No one knows who's favored to win in these sports, but they can bring the energy and emotion the Olympics have yet to see. The American Olympic team will now be sending new athletes to both compete and to try to win gold for America this summer. Tokyo 2020 should bring a lot of surprise, fun, and excitement the world has yet to see with the addition of their new events.
New York's newest football team took to the gridiron this weekend, and no, it was not the highly desired return of Hofstra's football program. It was, however, the debut of the XFL's New York Guardians, who showcased an exciting 23-3 victory over the Tampa Bay Vipers in what was part of an exciting inaugural week for the country's newest football league. In the XFL's first week, we saw a pick six, a block punt, touchdown, big hits, trick plays, new rules, and even live footage from both the replay booth and the play callers on the sideline, aspects atypical of the NFL. To say the very least, it was satisfying, if not exciting. Let me explain. Don't get me wrong, the XFL is no comparison to the NFL, who crowned their Super Bowl champs not too long ago. There's an obvious discrepancy in talent. But as I and all other football junkies try to satisfy our football cravings over the next 7-month offseason, the XFL seems to be good enough, and it may just be our remedy. The New York area is starving for a football championship. The New York Giants cannot seem to figure it out, and do not get me started about the New York Jets. The New York Guardians may even be more than just a remedy for the Empire State. They could be their savior. So New York, hop all aboard the hype train. The XFL is here, and I think it is here to stay. All right, guys, well, we got to start with the big FaceTime there, and that is the discussion about Kobe Bryant. Lou, it is clear that he meant a lot to me. I think it meant to a lot of people, not just inside the basketball world, but outside as well. To me, it was just put really everything into perspective. Made me hug my loved ones when I went home at night. For you, it had a huge impact.
Ryan, I remember I told you that he passed away and you didn't believe me. And it stunned the world. I still can't even believe it.
Kobe Bryant's death is one of those events that you know where you were in history when that happened. I could tell you I was calling a wrestling match, and immediately after I saw on my phone the notification, I went, there's no way. That is an event that'll stick in American history, that you will know the exact spot, time, location, everything when you first heard the news.
Yeah, definitely a loss of an inspirational person that had an impact on just so many people. Now shifting over to the Olympic talk, Max. Skateboarding? Are you serious? I did not think that skateboarding is an Olympic sport.
I don't care about skateboarding, Ryan. All my bets are on softball. It's a fun sport. It was great in Athens 04. Should be a great sport to watch again.
All right, well, that will just about wrap it up for us. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode of Sports Beat. I want to thank my panelists, Max Sacco, Lou Accumanno, and Tommy Aquilina for being here as always. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at HofstraSB, and tune in on March 11th for our second episode. Then until I'm Ryan Yee, have a great night.